Hey YouTube, Scapegoat here, and today we're going over the anime exclusive poll for the OCG, where one of the anime exclusive archetypes are going to become a real archetype in the TCG and OCG. And as you can see, we have Fossil Dyna on the front, which means Fossils won. They were my second choice. First choice was Sun Avalon, obviously, if you guys watch my channel. But Fossils are a good second choice, and we'll go over why if you can see all my tabs open. We're going to go over some of the cards too. But for what you can see right now, they won by 27.4%, which, I mean, it's a pretty chunky number. Spectre Sun Avalon won, they got second place by 23.5%. So I'm hoping, like, similarly what they did in the OCG, where first place was Shadal's for the structure deck. They also made the deck for the Sacred Beast. I'm hoping they still do something with Sun Avalon, seeing how high the percentage and not too far off it is from Jim's deck. But other than that, we have the Wicked, which are like the Wicked Eraser, the Avatar, and stuff like that. Blood Shepherd's Drones, which is 11%. I figured that would have been another good option, given how much of a card pool he has, but I don't think his cards are that great. And Alice's Doll Parts, 7.2%, which I'm very concerned why most people voted for her, given majority of her cards are normal monsters and the cards only get attack boosts pretty much from the normal monsters. Very strange how that outbeat something like Ninja, but the rest of the cards were Thorn Prisoner at 6.6%, Ninja at 2.8%, which is very surprising, the Familiar Abyss with 2.3%, the Shaman with 0.8%, Gutsmaster 0.6, Debugger 0.6, and Sid's Wheel archetype with a 0.5. Very sad. Still concerned how there's no Valen on here for the armor cards, but hey, what are you gonna do? I think that would have outbeat everything by like 80%. Sure, a lot of the fan base would have loved that, but without further ado, let's just jump into Jim's cards, see what we're gonna get. He has a decent card pool of cards. I just don't think the cards are good enough to warrant having an archetype built around them. Something like Sun Avalon's cards, where they're all very synergetic and they all work together. Jim's deck's kind of more reliant on your opponent, and the cards aren't really up to date with the meta and standards as of today. But we'll just take a look, see what we're getting into. A lot of these cards won't, or probably won't, be printed, as I think they're only going to work with a Fossil type of archetype of cards, not necessarily the off-name cards where they don't mention Fossil or they don't work with Fossil. But let's just take a look at all of his anime exclusive cards, none of the TCG or OCG cards. So we have Flint Kragger. He's a level 3 Earth monster. He is also a rock. You can send this face-up card to the graveyard and inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So it's kind of like a worse Scatter Shot. Pretty weird. It's how it's similar to Scatter Shot, and it was also in the same anime. But that's pretty much it for that. So next out of that, we have Sample Fossil, level 2, Rock Effect, Earth Monster. When this card is normal summon, select one level 4 or lower normal monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your side of the field. It cannot attack or be tributed. This card's attack is equal to that monster's original attack. So this is good if your opponent's playing a vanilla deck, mostly because this only special summons the normal monster. So I should also mention that I only think this won't be good if they don't buff the deck, which they could very well buff the deck by removing effects like this and making it regular monsters and stuff like that, but we'll just go purely on what is listed here. So based on the normal monster type of niche thing, I don't really think it's that great of a card, because you're very limited and there's not many normal monsters in the meta currently. I know this is designed in GX where the main character is using a hero deck with normal monsters in it, so good synergy there, but we're way into the future now, so hopefully they'll update this card to work with our meta and hopefully make it affect monsters and not normal monsters. The next card, Shell Knight. is a level 4 Earth monster. He's a rock. With this card is summoned, inflict 500 damage to your opponent, so some more effect damage. Nothing really relevant there. Ularu's Guardian, level 4 rock monster. He's an Earth. If this card is targeted by an opponent's card effect, you can send one face-up trap card you control to the graveyard to negate the effect until the end phase. And it is 2300 defense, and that's all it does. And it's very interesting. Nothing too great about it, but I have to read Ulu's Guardian, the trap card version. I want to see if there's any synergy there, but we'll check on that later. Weathering Soldier. So this is one of those cards that isn't really considered a fossil. I think Ulu's Guardian wasn't either, but they very well could easily just put the word fossil in front of it and add it. So it's an Earth, level 4 rock. Decrease the attack of this card by 600 points during each of your end phases. So it's pretty much a 2k beater, except on your end phase when it decreases. Pretty much it. So now we're on to the fusions. So from what I remember or understand of this archetype is you want to use your graveyard with your opponent's graveyard with Fossil Fusion to fuse, similar to Invoked, where you're banishing something from your grave and their grave or field or whatever. It's pretty much reliant on your opponent and what they have to make a fusion monster from your extra deck. So this one is a requirement. It's a Earth, level 4. It's a rock monster from your graveyard and a level 4 or lower dinosaur monster in your opponent's graveyard. So this card cannot be special summoned except with Fossil Fusion. So assumably it's just a vanilla. They very well could add an effect to it to make it better. Who knows? But it has 2500 attack. So attack's good for a level 4. I mean, that's pretty interesting. The next card, Earth, level 8, rock monster from your grave, and then level 8 or higher dinosaur from your opponent's graveyard. The requirements. This card cannot be special summoned except with Fossil Fusion. If this card attacks, you can switch the attack and defense of the attack target. So when it's attacking, the attack and defense switch during damage step only. If this card attacks a monster, it does piercing damage. So piercing damage and it swaps stats. So that's pretty interesting. Plus it's a 3500 attack beater. So it's got a big beater in the deck, so that's pretty neat. Especially Dino is going to be one of the decks in the meta, so it's pretty relevant with the pool right now, so not too bad. This has an unknown effect. It's a level 4 rock fusion. Can't really do much about it. It's Fossil Machine Skull Buggy, so I'm assuming it has a machine requirement. Who knows? There's no information. And then we have Fossil Machine Skull Convoy, which just seems like it's related to the last card, so it does have a machine type of clause to it. And this card can't be special with Fossil Fusion, unless you're using Fossil Fusion is what I mean. While your opponent controls a monster, this card can attack up to 3 times during the battle phase. So obviously when there's no monster on the field, it can't attack 3 times, it only does it for each monster. When this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict 1000 damage. So it's kind of like Tyranno. Ultimate Conductor. That's pretty interesting. And this relies on a machine. So in the meta, there's ABC and some other decks like that. Orcust is one too that can use it. Plus, if you're banishing an Orcust from the graveyard, kind of hinders them a little bit, but not too much, obviously, because they can replenish the resources. So that's pretty interesting. Fossil Machine Skull Wagon, another card that's relying on machines, but it doesn't have an effect. Level 6 and 5 or 6, level 5 or 6 machine monster, which I don't think there's many in the meta like that, but that's fine. Fossil Skull Warrior Skullbone. Obviously, it's gonna have to do with warriors. 1 level 4 lower warrior monster in your graveyard, in your opponent's graveyard. This card can't be special summoned without Fossil Fusion. So a lot of these look like they're monsters that are used as a baby step to go into another monster. And a lot of these monsters don't have effects, so I'm assuming they can always just add effects. Obviously, like I keep reiterating, because if you look at it right now, it's just a deck of normal monsters, except some of them have effects. Pretty much it. And here's the Big Boy Warrior, level 7 or higher warrior. This card comes special summon. If your opponent controls a monster at the end of damage step, it can attack once again in a row. So it does another attack, it does piercing. That's pretty much it. A lot of these have multi-attacks and do piercing, so that seems to be a reoccurring theme. Here's another warrior one, a level 5 or 6 warrior, and it looks like it does the multi-attack as well. Pretty much it, 2400 attack. Then we're into the spells. So pretty much what I gathered from the fusions, we had Dinosaur, we had Warrior, and we had Machine, which were 3 of the primary rivals or people in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX that you had to duel. Cyrus, Zane, Jaden, Warrior, Machine, Hassleberry, I think, for all of the different archetypes that he could have fused with. I'm not sure who he dueled in the anime, I forgot. I haven't watched it in a while, but it makes sense for all those. They could also make new ones, who knows, or they're going to add to their effects, but I'm hoping they add to the effects because those effects aren't really going to cut it. But let's just check the spells out. Remove from play 1 monster card in your opponent's graveyard. Destroy 1 monster on the field of the same type and a lower level than the removed monster. So it's pretty much more complicated, like Raigeki, I guess, or rather Smash and Ground, Fissure, one of those type of cards. You could just play Raigeki. I don't see a benefit of banishing one of your opponent's cards in the graveyard just to destroy a card. There are better cards that do that, like Yeti Crow, and they're chainable. This is a normal spell. So for the next card is Fossil Fusion. This is probably the best card of their archetype. This is what everything is revolving around. So you remove from play fusion materials that are listed on a Fossil Fusion monster from your extra deck. You remove cards from your graveyard and your opponent's graveyard. Special summon that fusion monster from your fusion deck. That is treated as a fusion summon. So that's pretty cool. The only issue I see with this deck right now is this is a pretty good fusion card, minus the fact that there's no reoccursion. So there's no getting this card back. You have to use the 3 multiples to play it, and then hope you draw into another copy or search another copy. That's the only issue I see. If there was like cards that added it back to your hand, or there's more beneficial effects to it, I guess it'd be a little better. But it's better than the standard polymerization, I suppose, but it's not obviously a reoccurring effect, which kind of hinders cards, because fusions nowadays need all of the reoccursion they can get when using their spell cards to fuse. Like Shadalls can get their Shadal fusion cards back pretty easily. That's all I'm saying. They should just have some recursion. Hopefully they do. The next spell card is Fossil Hammer. Destroy the monster on the field of the highest level your opponent controls. Your opponent selects 1 monster from the graveyard of the lower level than the destroyed monster and special summon it into attack position. So you destroy a high level monster and they special summon a low level monster. I'm assuming that's to get the higher monster into the graveyard so you can fuse with the higher monster instead of the lower one. Very weird effect, I'm not too into it. Half-Life. Activate only if a monster would be destroyed by battle, have the attack instead. So that's pretty interesting. It's one of those weird cube type of cards where you just put in a cube. But I don't really think this is practical for the Fossil deck at all. Miracle Rupture, activate by sending 1 rock type monster from your deck to the graveyard, shuffle your deck, and then draw 1 card. This is a really good card for the deck. You can obviously send whatever rock monster you want. It doesn't even have to be the Fossil card, it could be like Block Dragon, I think that's a rock one. Or something that you're going to get benefit off of, and then draw a card. This could even be good in Adamantia when that deck comes out, assuming this card is released, as it's not really a Fossil card, but it's very beneficial for the deck. I would hope they would release this card with the whole archetype. This is probably the best card I've read so far for meta relevance and the archetype itself, so I like that card a lot. Specimen Inspection. Send one monster from your hand to the graveyard to declare one type and level. Your opponent must send one monster with the declared type and level from their hand or deck to the graveyard. So I'm assuming this is going to be the helpful card that helps get the materials in the graveyard for your fusions. Like I'm stating earlier, the effects of the fusions are pretty much going to have to warrant you wanting to even play this deck at all, or wanting to fuse into those monsters in general. So this card, you can at least kind of declare the type and name, especially if you know the meta and you're declaring the types and levels. You know what you want to fuse into. It's just very dependent on the fusion. It's very hard to discuss something like this without knowing what you can summon off of it, instead of the listed multi-attack or piercing monsters, which aren't really too crazy in the meta. Time Stream, this one looks like it has a pretty beefy effect. Pay half your life points to target one Cenozoic Mesozoic fusion monster you control that use the type from your monster and targeted monster from your opponent's graveyard for its fusion. Return that monster to the fusion deck and special summon one fusion monster with the same type as that target, ignoring its summoning condition. You can select and special summon one Mesozoic monster if you target a Cenozoic monster or a Paleozoic. Targeted a Mesozoic specialist creates fusion summon. So kind of like the evolution pills, I guess. Like turning your card into something else. That's pretty interesting. Kind of like, I guess, mass change or something like that. That's pretty cool. Depending on obviously if the fusions are good. But that's certainly an interesting card. That's probably one of the more interesting cards in the archetype. Their spells are looking a lot better than the monsters. The regular effect monsters in the deck, because they're obviously just burning your opponent. And the fusion monsters are, you know, they have piercing and multi-attacks, I'll give them that, but if they have like more effects like removal and stuff like that, it'd be a little better. And then the support cards like the Foolish Burial card we went over, the Fossil Fusion, and this card, they seem pretty good. And the last card we have is a Trap. Ulu, the Guardian Spirit. I think hopefully this works with that monster. Activate only if there's an Ulu Guardian in your graveyard. Activation. After activation, special summon this card in defense position. It is treated as a normal monster, rock type, earth, level 4, 0 attack, 2500 defense. This card is still treated as a trap. All attack position monsters must attack this card during this turn's battle phase, if able to. During the end phase, destroy this card. So it's a very weird card that makes your opponent have to attack. And I only really see the benefit of this if your opponent has like a bunch of low levels out and they're forced to attack this card. But I'm not really sure. What was the effect of Ulu's Guardian? Yeah, they don't really have any synergy. That's pretty weird. Yeah, so I'm not really sure the trap's that worth it anyway. But it's an interesting card, but it's not one of those cards that I would even probably consider using in this deck if it even was good. It's more so like a fun casual card that you want to like activate in a fun duel. That's pretty much it. Overall, I think it does have a very large selection of cards in the pool to choose from. I just really hope Konami adds some effects to some of these monsters, because as of right now, they're not the greatest. I'm hoping they're just not going to release a bunch of vanilla monsters or monsters that just burn on summon. Doesn't really make much sense to do that. Kind of just hoping they buff the cards so they're more usable. Rock type monsters don't really have much of a presence in Yu-Gi-Oh! And in meta, aside from being stun cards. So if you're giving them a new type of deck and it's more aggro, I welcome that very much. I think Gem Knights were also a deck that were centered around rocks, but they're more so in the meta for FTK. And I don't want to think of rocks being FDK or stun decks. I want to see like Striker and Orcus deck that works similar to like how a rock deck would work, I guess, or vice versa, if you know what I mean. But thank you guys for watching. If you have any thoughts or suggestions of how you think the rock deck, or the fossil deck rather, should be, feel free to comment below. If you want to add anything else to that, feel free to do so. Hope you guys enjoyed. Congrats to everybody who voted fossil, and hopefully we'll get Sun Avalon cards in the future. But thank you guys for watching. Bye.